Greetings, dear visitors, dear viewers. As you know, Terra Illumination is a very serious channel. We tackle the toughest of the toughest situations. It's a highly professional operation, as you can tell. And one of the playlists that we have is called Story Time. And over time, we're just going to add more and more stories so that people can play around with it just like they're a kid in a little library. If you're bored out of your mind and you're looking for something to trigger an awakening or remind you how amazing it is to be alive, then this would be a good place to go. Terra Illumination Story Time. Okay? You'll find all sorts of other amusing tales from the great beyond over there as well. So this one, let's have a look. This is probably just going to be a very short and sweet little story. You know, if you're driving your minivan or if you're sitting in your cafe and you're waiting for someone to arrive and you've got your YouTube thing on and your headphones plugged in and you just somehow or other ended at Terra Illumination Story Time, then this might be the perfect thing that you need just to get you through those few moments. It's called Yet Another Moment of Awakening. And of course, we all like those. We all need those because that's how we evolve. We get shaken and woken up out of our stagnation, sometimes in very, very, very disruptive ways in order to wake us up, to make us realize how incredible it is to be alive, how incredible it is to survive the unsurvivable. That happens very frequently. Oddly enough, miracles are quite frequent. I'm sure you all have stories of miracles in your own life. Well, this is just Terra Illumination with another kind of story of awakening in the life of Terra Illumination. So let's go back to an old, gnarly old city, like a brownstone type city, where there's a lot of brick and mortar, and everything's kind of oldie worldy and colonial, a little bit of Victorian, a little bit of modern with a few skyscrapers downtown, but a lot of it is classic oldie stuff, almost out of a movie set, especially on the main street areas, you know, where you would have these very picturesque little galleries and boutiques on the ground floor, and on the layers higher up, there would be the residences or the offices or more little boutiques or quirky little places where people do quirky things. And you can figure that out for yourself. So that's the type of town where Terra Illumination was living at that time. Also in this town, it was very well known for having extreme weather, extreme heat and humidity in the summer, and extreme cold and dryness in the winters. Sometimes snow falls of up to 3 to 6 feet at times in certain places. And at both extremes of the weather, people die. You know, it just happens. It's just too extreme. And so that's just how things were in this town. Also, because it was inland, it had its fair share of the four seasons. There were very, very hot summers, like we said, very, very cold winters. And then there's the gnarly springs and the gnarly falls where everybody kind of goes, oh, this is my favorite time of the year, where everything changes. Oh. And meanwhile, you're thinking about which wardrobe I have to pick out. You have 4 core wardrobes to get you through the 4 core seasons. So you're shuffling between one wardrobe and another. So Terra Illumination is just at home recovering from a major health traumatic incident, which has nothing to do with this particular story. But Terra Illumination survived, because that seems to be the theme of Terra Illumination, surviving all these weird near-death things. And coming back to tell the tale. Isn't that fun? Or isn't it funny? I know you've got your own stories too. Maybe this will inspire you to tell your own, write your own, or something like that. So there we are. Terra Illumination is living in this town. It's a very social, active place. Terra Illumination was very socially active, even though kind of bedridden and with a cane and a wheelchair. But that was okay. You know, still alive, still functioning, knowing that this would all pass. This too shall pass. And so this particular house where I lived, I'm going to switch back to me and I now. Thank you. It's quicker. It was a kind of a classic brick style brownstone, like 4 stories and a basement and an attic, oldie worldy, you know, with nice moldings and features, and everything was a little bit gnarly and crooked and beat up, but it had that wonderful, delicious, homely feel. A nice big kitchen where you could spread out and do things and have people over. A nice big living room where you could just goof around everywhere and have whole sections of the living room just for doing one thing, and then all the other different rooms, just like in another house. And then there's the upstairs and the downstairs. Windows that rattled, doors that didn't fit, floors that were crooked, so crooked, and a house that was so crooked and uneven that you put a ball in the middle of the room and it would roll to one end of the room. And that's just how it was. So you can picture that kind of house. And I was very lucky to have the ground floor apartment to myself. And I had a roommate, tenant, who wasn't there, didn't spend much time there. So I was very lucky to have the run of this place a lot of the time. And I really loved being there. There were lots of plants and trees around, even right in the middle of town. And I could park my car in the driveway. I had my own driveway. Can you imagine that? And then like a little yard, and everything was kind of picturesque, and I liked to keep it nice. So if you can imagine, outside the kitchen door there was kind of like a little, you know, decky kind of thing, concrete, where we would hang out in summer times with lovely trees hanging over, and I would sweep this deck and clean this deck and keep it nice. And then back indoors in the lovely gnarly old kitchen, you know, making yummy foods and teas and coffees and brews and having people over and big buckets of food and sharing, and just a generally jovial atmosphere to try and overcome the misery of, you know, just gruesome health. So this was the day-to-day thing. And I'd been there for a couple of years, and I'd got used to the seasons, and I knew how to wrap up a lot in winter, and I knew how to, like, you know, wear shorts and t-shirts in summer with flip-flops, just like anybody would do. You know, nothing special going on here. There was a couple of wild raccoons that loved to hang out in the back, and we became friends. I had my little cat, Peter. He was wonderful, one of those little tabbies, and also little cat Hector, who was kind of a runt, had a broken tail from birth. But between Peter and Hector, I trained them to be the most awesome, self-confident, most self-loving little cats you could ever imagine. And they ruled the neighborhood, having come from very, very troubled backgrounds. So there's a lot of love in the home. There's a lot of healing. Okay, the healing power of love flows into and out of this home just like a funnel. Okay, that was just the day-to-day life there. And being a bit limited in capacities, physical, people would come to visit and hang out and just enjoy the vibe. And they would be most welcome. And we would have, you know, glasses of like iced tea or some kind of concoction. And sometimes in the evenings, these would be, let's say, more adult type concoctions that would have liqueurs and things like that involved. And all those little indulgences that people enjoy in the evenings. And then one day, when nobody was there, not even the scary visitor who smashed open the windows in the kitchen one day just to retrieve her keys, I had to evict her. She turned out to be a complete loony and very untrustworthy and a thief, and prone to extremes of very unacceptable behavior that involved police. So now and again things went bad, but that makes you appreciate the good stuff even better. So one day the weather goes bad. Let's just say it. The weather turned pretty grim. It's at one of those seasonal times, whether it was fall or spring, I can't remember. It was quite a long time ago, but you could feel it rumbling. You could feel the weather changing, the hair, the hair getting heavy, the air getting very, very heavy, very dense, very thick, heavy air. And then the energy of the air slows down, the wind slows down, things start to get a bit weird. The sky goes brownish gray, and it looks very, very dark and threatening. And so, of course, I thought, oh gosh, it's going to be a tornado. Dang. But it'll probably blow over because we don't get them in town too much. They go out in the boonies a little bit more. But we did have tornadoes nearby. So even in the middle of town, weird. How weird is that? But that's not what this story is about. That's another story. So there I am, Terra Lumination, who lived under another name at that time, of course, at home pondering what to do, what to do, what to do. Distract myself with making food or beverages, or sit down and daydream and lie down and daydream, lie down and rest, try to recover. What's the smart thing to do right now? And I decided to do absolutely nothing. I decided to just wander out into the front yard and onto the deck and look at my car and look at the driveway and look at the brick and look at the house and realize how incredibly lucky I am to be alive at this moment in time with all these beautiful trees and big, big, fat raindrops starting to drop. Bloop, 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 one by one. So as you can tell, we now know that there is a big storm heading our way. Now, in my neighborhood there, you couldn't get a huge view of the sky because there were lots of trees, so it mostly was about looking up and enjoying what was straight up there. But it was very obvious what was happening. And then all of a sudden, as you can imagine, fill in the blanks, there's the big rumble. Impending thunder. So I thought, okay, this is going to be fun. This is going to be a big one. And of course, it builds up. It builds up. So you can picture it. There we are. And so I think this is actually kind of fun. You know how you get in storms, that's what happens. And then at the moment, you reach a certain point where you get too scared and then you run and hide. Okay, so I was getting pretty damp by this time, but I was also enjoying it. It was a relief. It was very kind of delicious, that weird, hot, wet, stormy kind of feel. Having previously been cooler, it was a very strange mixture of weather. And then, of course, you could feel the things swirling. The trees started to do that shaky, shaky thing. And the trees and the rain start to combine together to do the shaking and that sort of, as you feel the rain increasing in its volume. And then it increases and increases and it becomes torrential. And you realize this is going to be big. So the trees are starting to shake around and sway around. And the rain is coming in these like waves and currents and torrents. And it's starting to pound. And because the house was on a sloping road, a lot of the rain is starting to pile up and just, I guess, flow down the street to whoever lived below. Good luck to them. And then into the river at the center of town. So there we go. Big, big storm pending. Huge, huge storm pending. And then bang. The first big thunder. Excuse me, I'm getting all choked up. First big thunder. And then you start counting. Till the lightning and the crack. Or which is it first? The lightning and then the boom? Or the boom and then the lightning? I can't remember. I think the lightning's faster. Okay, so you start seeing these lights that go off. So you know there's lightning. And you think, wow, this is going to be a big one. And it gets bigger and bigger and louder and louder. And you start realizing, wait a minute, that thing they tell you about when you're a kid, start counting the seconds between the flash of lightning and the boom of the thunder. And then you can tell how close it's getting. I think they told me 6 seconds is 1 mile, or almost 1.5 kilometers, or something like that. I don't remember, but there's a gap. But as the gap gets smaller, you realize the storm is closer and the lightning is right there. And then it comes a point where the lightning is happening at the same time as the boom. And that's when it gets scary for people. A lot of people get scared at that point, and I do too. But I have to tell you, I'm kind of a nutcase in these ways, and I was kind of enjoying it. So I kept jumping out to have a look to see what was going on, and it was very, very, very exciting. Then the rain became so thick and the thunder and the lightning so big and so profound and so loud that I actually did get scared. Can you imagine that? Terra Illumination getting scared. It's almost unheard of. So anyway, I decided, okay, I just better go inside because that's what a normal person would do. So I go inside and I gaze out the windows, moving through the different rooms, watching the different scenes from the different areas. And there's no separation between the lightning and the boom. It's just, just, and I think, wow, yeah, this is pretty cool, but I'm actually starting to wig out a little bit. And so I started getting a little bit shaky, to be honest. And I hid. I'm just going to admit it. I got scared. I hid. I went into my bedroom and I curled up in my bed, which was sort of in the middle of the room, close to one wall-ish, but really more like in the middle of the room. And I just hid. I'm going to admit it. I chickened out. I hid under the covers. And in about 30 seconds, well, you can guess what happened, but I'm going to tell you because it's a story. Within about 30 seconds of lying down, the most mind-boggling, ear-splitting explosion you could ever imagine happened right in front of me, right in me. And I realized that our house had been hit. Not only that, that particular bedroom was hit for some reason. I don't know why, but the whole room lit up as though it was like being inside of a massive light bulb. I don't know if you can imagine this. If you can imagine a very powerful light bulb and then imagine yourself on the inside of it. That's what it was like. And of course it was, very quick. Lightning just kind of goes boom like that. So that's all it was. It was just a like that thing. And my ears hurt after the explosion, but that's what happened. And there I was. I lived through it, and I lived. And that was that. Thank you very, very much. End of story. Well, it's not quite. I'm going to try to get to the point. But it's quite frightening when your house gets hit by lightning. And I could see, because of the old steam pipes that went through from the floor to the ceiling in between the different stories of the house, that part of this big steel pipe, is one of those old-fashioned buildings, big old cast iron radiators and that kind of stuff. I saw this big black burn mark on the big pipe that was not there, earlier. And I realized for some reason or other, the lightning went to that place. I had no idea why. Don't ask me. I'm not a physicist. I don't know anything about the physics of lightning. But anyway, the lightning chose to go to that point and make the whole room explode. But nothing actually happened. There was no fire. There was nothing. It was just a massive explosion, and then it stopped. The real explosion was the light. It was so blinding and it was so unexpected, like, what do you do? And so to me, I took that as a moment of awakening. And I thought, wow, it's amazing to be inside like a ball of lightning and not die. There's a movie out there. It's a very old movie. I think it's called Powder. It's about this kid, I think, who gets hit by lightning. And there's another amazing book called Saved by the Light by Daniel Brinkley. And it's a kind of a lightning story about how he found salvation after being hit by lightning. Now, I was not directly biologically hit by that lightning. It did not touch me as a lightning bolt as a person, which does happen. It just came to the room, and I got to be in the room and witness this thing and live. So I thought, okay, that's very, very cool. In fact, it was so cool that I got up and I was very happy and I was very excited, even though it was very scary. And I walked through the house thinking, my gosh, I just lived through a lightning strike. That's very, very cool. And so I was very proud of myself. So I wandered over to the kitchen, and of course the storm was still pounding and blazing. And I started looking around the house, and I realized, my gosh, these pipes and these heaters are everywhere. And I thought, oh my gosh. And, because the lightning is still pounding, you can see like outside where the whole street is being lit up like a massive movie set, for that fraction of a second when the lightning hits. So I thought, this is actually, if I'm honest, I'm kind of getting a little bit scared now. What do I do? There's no point in going outside, no point in hiding in the car because the car could get hit. So what does a person do in a situation like this? I thought, well, I'm in the kitchen. It's a smaller room. What about the living room? Let's go into the living room and stay there. In fact, let's move on to that there's a kind of a second sofa kind of right in the middle of the living room with a coffee table right next to it. And I thought, I'm just going to park on the sofa. I'm going to lie down there and cover myself up with blankets, and everything is going to be just fine, and the storm's going to blow over, and it'll be like nothing happened, and then the sun will shine, and everything's lovely and wonderful again. Thank you very much. And then many years later, you can start a YouTube channel and tell the story to people. Thank you very much. So as I was wandering around the living room, I actually had a cup of tea because I had made a cup of tea to try and calm myself down from the excitement of being alive and being awakened, but also from the fear of nearly feeling like I might have died. So I thought the best thing to do was have a cup of tea and figure this out. The reality is I was kind of soggy wet because I was in my pajamas and a robe. I know that's strange because it was the middle of the day, but you have to remember, I told you at the beginning of the story, I was not in very good health. So I felt okay to wander around in my pajamas and a robe and slippers. Thank you very much. And so anyway, I thought, okay, well, I guess the best thing to do to ride this out, there's nothing much else to do, nowhere else to go. There's no point in hiding in the bathroom. If that happens in the bathroom, I'm going to die. If the room is too small. So just stay in the biggest room in the house, and then we'll figure it out from there. So there I was thinking like, okay, well, this is it. This is the location, and everything will be over in a moment, and everything will be fine. And I was just, like one of those, like you would do if you're just holding a cup of tea in your hands, looking around, just pondering things, having figured out what you just lived through. And then it happened again. Oh no. This time I wasn't prepared. I wasn't lying down. I wasn't uh, doing anything except standing in the middle of the room. And the same thing happened again. And lightning goes very fast. It's so fast. It's unbelievable. And then to see it right there. So what happened is the living room got hit. I have no idea how or why, but I actually saw the pipe where it was hit. This time I really was scared because I actually saw where the lightning found its way into the house and it hit a trigger point. Maybe it was like a loose part on the plumbing or something. And that's where the lightning started. And I witnessed that. I saw it in that very short moment of time where it goes kaboom. I saw where it started on that pipe and then how it filled up the whole room with intense white light. There was no heat at all. Well, it was kind of warm just for a fraction of a second, but it really didn't feel like much of a heat or anything. It was just an extremely loud boom, like a massive spark, an enormous spark, and a very loud explosion sound, and then it was over, and then this massive burn mark on the pipe that was smoking, and that was the end of that. And I thought, okay, this is getting very, very weird. And I didn't do much. I just stood there because I'm basically in shock. I was basically in shock, standing there holding a cup of tea in my pajamas and robe. And I looked around and I thought, well, that all happened so quickly and I'm alive again. Thank you very much. So what do we do now? So I thought, okay, let's turn this into a game. Let's go to the kitchen. Let's see what happens. Yay. So I went into the kitchen And I stayed there, and I stayed there, and I stayed there, and nothing happened. And I was very grateful to the heavens and the angels above. But what did happen is that the cat flap opened, and two very soggy little cats flew in through the cat flap door into the kitchen and started running around like they had been electrocuted. And like, you know how animals do, like running around, and then they kind of spasmed out and stalled out, and they were very soggy because I guess, I trained them to be outdoor cats, urban outdoor cats. They were very, very, very smart. And they came in and they sheltered with me, and we just huddled up together. I had my cup of tea, which was still very warm, thank you very much. And I had my two little fellas, Peter and Hector, and we just hung out together until the storm was over. And that was that. And eventually everything calmed down and the skies cleared and it became sunny and warm and beautiful. And I never really patched up the big spark marks in the bedroom or the living room because I knew I wasn't going to be living there much longer anyway. So I just kind of ignored it all and left them there as battle scars. And I told a few of my friends and neighbors about the situation. And they told me something which I didn't expect to hear. And I don't believe them. But this is what they told me. They said, well, first of all, you're very lucky to be alive. And that lightning did not come out of the sky to hit your house. It came through the ground and up into your house. And I thought, okay, guys, okay, yeah, blah, blah, yeah. And they said, oh, it's like, maybe it's some urban legend or something, because there was a massive like radio antenna very close to my house, maybe like 1 block away. And they said, listen, all that happened is the lightning must have struck the big tower and then found its way into the ground, and it decided to pick your house to ground out. You believe what you want. I thought they were full of BS myself because I was there. I lived in it. I was right in the middle. So thank you very much. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And if you think it's weird or it's just a bunch of BS, that's your problem. Okay? It's a real story. It's really true. And I lived through it. So I understand. I've faced lightning face to face. And I know these stories sound very strange. But they're my stories. And I don't want to hold them inside me all day, every day, forever. I just want to put them out there and then move on. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that little story, and maybe that'll happen to you guys one day, or maybe not. I feel very lucky to be alive. I know a lot of people have endured much, much worse situations than that. Complete firestorms, complete tornadoes, complete hurricanes, and where there was true live devastation. So this is just small fry compared to some stories. But it left a very big mark. This particular story left a very big mark on me and my soul and my body, and I never forgot. So I'm just sharing this with you. All right. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for choosing Terra Illumination Story Time. Please enjoy. There's plenty of more stories out there coming. All right. Bye-bye.